Welcome back to A1 Storyteller, where we bring you the most thrilling, heart-stopping, and jaw-dropping stories straight to your screen. Get comfortable because what we have for you today is a courtroom drama you won't believe. Grab your popcorn and settle in because this story will leave you on the edge of your seat. Let's dive in. The courtroom's atmosphere was thick with anticipation as the day of the trial finally arrived. Jasmine Wright stood at the entrance, heart racing. The sound of her heels clicking against the polished marble echoed in the silence. She had come a long way from her humble beginnings, a young girl from a tough neighborhood who had fought tooth and nail to climb the ladder of success. Now, she was here to testify in a case that had captivated the nation, one that would change her life forever. For months, the media had been buzzing about the trial. The CEO of a massive corporation, Henry Langford, had gone missing under suspicious circumstances. What started as a missing persons case had spiraled into something much more sinister, a web of corporate fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. Jasmine had been recruited as a junior paralegal on the case, but had quickly become an essential part of the investigation. Her knowledge of corporate documents, combined with her resourcefulness, had uncovered something dark beneath the polished exterior of the company. As she walked into the courtroom, every eye was on her. The defense attorneys eyed her warily, sensing that she was more than just a witness, she was a threat. Jasmine had seen this look before, in the faces of men who underestimated her. She was used to it. But today she would not be silenced. Today she would take the stand and expose the truth. The prosecutor, a seasoned attorney named Claire Hollister, stood up and introduced Jasmine to the court. Jasmine's voice rang clear and steady as she began to recount her involvement in the investigation, outlining how she had found evidence that pointed toward corporate malfeasance. But as she spoke, something changed. The defense attorneys were growing restless. They tried to shake her confidence, asking questions that hinted at a possible agenda to discredit her testimony. They called into question her credibility, accusing her of fabricating the evidence. But Jasmine wasn't swayed. She had the truth on her side, and she wasn't about to back down. Jasmine Wright's role in the case had always been more than that of a mere paralegal. From the moment she stepped into the law firm, she felt the call to something bigger than herself. The firm had placed her in charge of combing through documents and databases, a task that had once seemed boring to others, but was a challenge she relished. It was through this meticulous work that she began to uncover hidden discrepancies, small signs that suggested something much darker than mere financial mismanagement. She saw patterns in the numbers, the misdirected funds, and the coded language in emails that had initially seemed innocent. She began to dig deeper. Meanwhile, Agent Marcus Harris of the FBI had been tracking the company's movements for nearly 2 years, quietly investigating its involvement in money laundering and ties to underground criminal organizations. Though Harris was used to the complex world of white-collar crime, he hadn't anticipated how deeply rooted the corruption went, or how personal the case would become for him. As a seasoned agent, Harris had faced dangerous criminals and had worked on cases that spanned entire countries. But this was different. This case involved people at the top, the powerhouses that controlled the flow of money, politics, and even justice. What he had not expected was to cross paths with Jasmine Wright, whose passion for justice was as strong as his own. He had first encountered her when she contacted the FBI with the evidence she had found, setting off a chain of events that would lead to a groundbreaking investigation. Harris, though initially skeptical, was impressed by Jasmine's sharpness and her ability to tie together pieces that the authorities had missed. The deeper Jasmine dug, the more she realized that the case was much larger than she could have ever imagined. She began receiving threatening letters. At first they were simple warnings, but they escalated quickly. Someone didn't want her digging into this company's past. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She knew what was at stake, not just for herself, but for the countless victims of the corporate fraud she was uncovering. Her days were filled with long hours of analysis, but the nights were harder to handle. Jasmine's thoughts consumed her, and she couldn't escape the feeling that the higher-ups in the company were watching her every move. She found herself staying up late into the night, piecing together data, but also staring at her phone, wondering if today would be the day someone showed up at her door. Despite the mounting pressure, Jasmine continued to push forward. She knew the world needed to hear the truth, no matter the cost. It was now the day of the trial, and Jasmine had made her decision. She would take the stand, despite knowing that it meant risking everything. The defense attorneys had already begun their campaign of intimidation. They tried to discredit every word she said, challenging her credibility, accusing her of having a personal vendetta against the company. But Jasmine stood firm. The defense's strategy was clear. If they could make Jasmine appear unreliable, then they could undermine the entire case. They even brought in experts who claimed that the evidence she had presented was inconclusive, misinterpreted, or even fabricated. But Jasmine knew she couldn't back down. With every question, every attempt to tear her down, she became more resolute. She had the documents. She had the recordings. The truth would come out no matter what. She presented the court with an overwhelming case of fraud, detailing how the company had systematically embezzled funds from smaller businesses and bribed politicians to cover their tracks. The tension in the courtroom had been building steadily throughout the day. People could feel that something was about to change. The defense's attempt to discredit Jasmine had only strengthened her resolve, and now it seemed inevitable that the truth would emerge. Just as the defense attorney was about to begin another round of cross-examination, the doors of the courtroom suddenly swung open and a group of FBI agents walked in. There was no mistaking the presence of the agents. They were here for a reason. Agent Marcus Harris entered the courtroom with a quiet, commanding presence. The moment he walked through the door, all eyes shifted toward him. His reputation preceded him, and the defense lawyers immediately went on the defensive. They had not expected the FBI to intervene at this stage of the trial. The judge called for order, but the atmosphere had already shifted. This was no longer just a courtroom drama. It was about to escalate into something much larger. The FBI had been quietly investigating the case for months, and now they had come forward with critical new evidence. Agent Harris stepped forward, addressing the court. "Your Honor, we have been investigating this company for a significant period of time," he began, his voice steady but firm. "What has been presented in this courtroom so far is just the tip of the iceberg. We have uncovered a vast network of corruption involving politicians, law enforcement, and even some of the individuals sitting in this room." The defense team scrambled, but their attempts to discredit Harris were futile. The agents presented hard evidence, bank records, wiretaps, and confidential informants who had worked with the company. Jasmine's findings had been only a small part of a much larger conspiracy. The defense team's smugness evaporated in an instant. As the FBI began to reveal the depth of the conspiracy, the courtroom was left in stunned silence. What had seemed like a high-profile corporate scandal was now a sprawling criminal enterprise with international connections. The defense attorneys knew they were losing control, and it was clear that their clients, men who had once seemed untouchable, were no longer safe. Jasmine sat at the witness stand, her heart racing as she watched the evidence unfold. She had known that the truth would come out, but seeing it in front of her was a moment of vindication she would never forget. The case had far surpassed what anyone had initially thought. What started as a simple fraud case had turned into a fight for the future of justice itself. As the days passed, Jasmine's life began to take a personal toll. She became a target of intimidation, late-night phone calls, strangers lurking outside her apartment. The FBI had offered her protection, but she refused to go into hiding. Jasmine would not let fear control her. She thought about the people who had been affected by the company's greed, the employees who had lost their jobs, the families who had been left in the dark, and the communities that had been ravaged by corporate malpractice. It was for them that Jasmine kept going. It was for them that she was willing to risk everything. The trial reached its climax when the prosecution called forward one final witness, the company's CEO, Henry Langford, who had been missing for months. His disappearance had been shrouded in mystery, but now it was clear why he had gone into hiding. Langford was arrested on the spot when it was revealed that he had been at the center of the entire conspiracy. The courtroom erupted as his arrest became the final piece of the puzzle. Jasmine had done it. She had exposed the truth. The case was won. What an extraordinary journey we've been on together. From the moment Jasmine Wright took the stand, she fought with everything she had to bring the truth to light. And with the help of the FBI, she turned the case into something far bigger than anyone could have imagined. The corruption and deceit that once seemed untouchable were finally brought to justice. Jasmine's bravery has changed the course of history. Thank you for being a part of this unforgettable story. If you want to hear more incredible tales like this, make sure to subscribe to A1 Storyteller. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss out on the next thrilling episode. Until next time, remember, truth always finds a way to come to the surface.